Hi, it's Nicole on Positive Impact for Mind and Body. And I'm looking at fear today, and I'm hoping that you'll join me in a couple of nice exercises we can do to alleviate fear and put things into perspective. My name is Nicole Fevrier Davis. I'm a psychic certified personal trainer, but I also am a Reiki master, a behavior specialist, and metabolic technician. So one of the things that popped up recently, I had someone ask me to give them a psychic reading. And I had mentioned to her that, I felt that the fear in her energy, in her aura, in her mind and body were really preventing her from attaining certain goals. And I really wanted to kind of express and, not just identify that she had fear consciously as well as subconsciously that was preventing her from getting her where she wanted to go. But I also wanted to give her some tools, that would help her get that under control. Because as you and I both know, that's probably the biggest underlying factor to a lot of illnesses. I mean, fear all by itself is a healthy response in some cases. That's how we were grown and developed to protect ourselves, especially in dangerous situations where you're trying to stay alive, let's just say. But, also on a more surface level, like, am I going to catch the bus on time this morning? That sort of thing. So I think the first step is recognizing what level of fear you're in. Now, like I said, during this time of COVID, it has been a truly, truly remarkable time in our lives in this era that we have experienced a sort of desperation, I want to say, even with all the technology that we have, all the medicine that we can use, all the preventive care that we know of, supplement wise, and how to eat healthy bone broth and echinacea and vitamin C, you name it. We have so many ways that we can protect ourselves. And yet I still think there's this underlying anxiety and fear. And a lot of it does stem from people who've lost their jobs, their finances are at risk. Everything is hanging in the balance. People are doing stupid, desperate things like identity theft and creating accounts with social security numbers that aren't theirs. There's breaches everywhere. I mean, we really do have a lot of, current events that are compromising our mental well-being and throwing all of us into this tizzy, into this fear state. And if you are one of those people that kind of has, experienced some of those things, I know personally, since the beginning of COVID, I've lost my studio, my accounts have been hacked, you name it, like my cat almost died. I mean, every single month, during COVID, something new has popped up. And I probably should be the first to say, oh my goodness, I have so much to be afraid of. And yet, when I look at the anatomy of fear on a rational level, on a conscious level, I recognize that I basically can't do anything about it unless I know about it. So there are those elements that you do know about, and then there are the elements you don't know about. If you know about certain elements, then you more than likely have some power over it, right? You have some control over it. It's the subconscious things that I find a lot of people struggle with fear-wise. People have described to me waking up in the morning and saying, I don't know why, I wake up scared. I wake up full of anxiety, and I really have no reason to. I mean, I'm not commuting to work. I'm working from home. I still have a paycheck. My kids are all healthy, and, I have a good relationship with my husband. I'm doing well, but I still have this latent level of anxiety. And I do think there's a lot to the thought that news. If you watch a lot of news, you're probably going to be a little more anxious than the average person. Not only is it kind of anxiety spreading and filling, but it does tend to take your focus out of the present moment, doesn't it? When you watch the news, don't you feel as though maybe this present moment isn't safe just because you're watching someone else's terrible story, nightmare stories out there? So that's one thing I find is a huge contributor to general anxiety and fear, especially when I'm giving a reading. Here's the other piece of this, and this was really fascinating to me. A psychic reading I gave a woman recently, and I was talking to her about her anxiety and her fear and her conscious acknowledgement of it. And I said, you know, I almost feel as though you had another lifetime where you were struggling and desperate to survive, almost like it was like a depression kind of feel to it, but it wasn't, you know, the Great Depression. And she said, I know what it is. My family survived the Holocaust. And as such, I felt that growing up, I had a lot of those life lessons, and I look at things differently. And I look at things in a way that I can understand and acknowledge how hard I have to work in order to survive and flourish. And that was a really big moment for her. It was a big moment for me as well, because I think when we're all looking at our you know, history, universal history on this planet, there are so many devastating and horrific things that have happened in the past that sometimes when they're mentioned in history books and things like that, we have a tendency to defocus. You know, it's like something that happened in the past will never happen again. And yet, many of us whose ancestors have survived those things, my father and mother survived the Depression, there is this deep-seated latent anxiety about what if, you know, what would happen if we ever entered into that time where, you know, the dollar was, you know, what do I want to say? De-emphasized, and, you know, people are running around looking for bread, and you can't even begin to fathom this, because everything we have in place right now, right? Our food supply, our economy, like I said, we have medications, we have information in abundance about health and well-being, ways to use supplements, etc. We can't imagine ever getting into that position again. And yet something like a COVID virus kind of sets us all on alert, right? And I'd mentioned this to another client, that it's a shame that we live in a culture right now, we have to, and I understand we have to, that if we catch a cold, you know, we are basically lepers for 10 to 14 days until we're sure we don't have COVID. So anyway, I feel like this recent COVID year, this past year, a lot of people have not only been surviving the fears and anxieties of what it is to live this new normal COVID style, but also it may be pushing some subconscious buttons of what their ancestors have experienced, or what maybe they've experienced in past lives. And so that being said, you know, my whole goal for this podcast is to give you tools, you know, to give you information on things I know that do work, that will work, and to kind of maybe shine a light on the things that I know don't work. A lot of people I know are going to take antidepressants and go down that road to alleviate some of the anxiety and fear that they may be holding in their subconscious minds or even conscious minds. But I also want to ask you, and I do believe this, that people who do have a spiritual aspiration, and it doesn't mean that you have to follow a specific religion, but if you believe that there's that universal life force, that Buddha, that Jesus, that Muhammad, that all of our Kuan Yin and beautiful examples of gods and goddesses in our lifetime, they came from somewhere, right? They have to be rooted in some sort of truth. And I believe that people who do have a spiritual practice, either in meditation or maybe they walk labyrinths. If you've never heard of labyrinth walking, it's basically a moving meditation. Or if you do yoga, or if you do any spiritual practice, prayer in groups, that has to be, and challenge me here if you're watching this, that has to be one of the best fear and anxiety busters ever. Knowing that you can not only gather with people of like mind, share and interpret sacred knowledge, knowledge that has been around thousands of years longer than COVID ever has. That knowledge, I think, is a very beautiful and life-sustaining thought, and it also alleviates fear and anxiety. I think that's the number one thing that you can do right away. And when I say pray, I don't mean out of a sense of desperation, like you're falling off the cliff and you got to pray right now so that you get some attention really quickly. It's not that kind of prayer. This is the prayer that's coming from an open mind, an open heart, and a trusting place inside your soul that believes that there's a greater presence out there and that you're connected to it. So I think that's number one, that spiritual practice is going to help you alleviate your fears and anxieties about what's going on right now. So that's the first one. The second one I would say is a lot of what we're doing right now is so centralized, right? We're not walking anywhere. We're not running errands as much. We're not going, I don't know about you, but I barely go grocery shopping. It's just not what I want to do right now and risk my family's health and well-being. But, and also or like go to a gym. Remember Jonesing for a gym? I still miss my gym. I'm not doing very much of anything like that, but I am daily either walking or lifting weights at home, working out at home. Sometimes I'll demonstrate a Pilates class to a client if they'd like Pilates and core work that day. So I do also think that there's a lot to be said for physical activity in this. We are usually, most of the people I work with, right, they're at a computer 8, 10, 12 hours a day. Physical activity allows us to retrain the brain in a more positive way. It's not just the physical movement, which feels so good. It is also the ability to increase endorphin levels in your brain, right? Because what does fear do? It raises heart rate, blood pressure, it constricts blood vessels, it increases cortisol levels, GABA drops, aminobutyric acid, I'll get that right one day. The neurotransmitter that kind of slows down the synaptic connections in the brain and allows us to be more contemplative instead of reactive. That drops, endorphin levels drop, serotonin drops when you're fearful. So by doing these things, we can actually start to physically engage the brain and raise some of those neurotransmitters, or at least get them balanced so that they are not acting out on us in a negative way. And that, I will say this too, this goes for having, a stimulant. Stimulants can do horrible things for people with anxiety, and things like coffee, Red Bull. I find that even green tea for me on a day that's like full of fear, Not good, not good. So you want to avoid, stimulants that are going to kind of put your fear cycle in place and run you. So that being said, the second piece of this is physical activity, making sure you are physically active, especially if you've had a stimulant. If you're taking a stimulant, like a pre-workout for your workout, that's one thing, because the whole idea is that energy, that buildup of energy is for the workout. But when you have that buildup of energy inside of you and you can feel your heart palpitating and your face is flushed because you're anxious and nervous and fearful, then that's when those stress chemicals in the body can actually do a lot of damage. So you're better off working out while you're stressed anyway, because it'll alleviate a lot of it, send happier chemicals to your brain, and allow you to really feel a sense of being tired, without mental exhaustion. It'll be a physical tired, which is healthier, I think, if you are going to take a stimulant like that and risk being anxious. The third thing is, in general, it's it's important to get perspective, right? If we're doing all the things that we can do to keep ourselves safe, that is the most important and key and crucial element. Some people, I've been through some really horrific times, and people are like, aren't you worried about this? Aren't you bothered by this? Doesn't this concern you? And I always say no. Number one, I love to meditate. I really do feel connected with my angels. I really do feel connected to God. And I really do feel like I have these moments of sheer bliss in my life that I can look forward to. And I wish that on everyone. I wish everyone has that sense of bliss as well. But I think one of the biggest things is that I emotionally and mentally do not identify on a regular basis with, the negative situations that create anxiety and fear. I identify with the eternal spirit. I identify with love. I identify with the beauty of human nature, and our ability to be proactive. I identify with emotional, mental strength, physical strength. I identify with prosperity. I identify with health. I identify myself with all things that are of a caregiving nature, that are kind, full of joy, peace, love, and truth. That's my identity. So when bad things happen, it's usually predicated or it's started by someone else who does identify with theft, who does identify with cheating, who does identify with anger, fear. And so therefore, this circumstance isn't my reality. And that, I know it sounds a little kind of, woo-woo, esoteric, but it is true. You will magnetize to you what you do identify with. So for instance, I had given a woman a reading a while back. I said, I hate to say it, but I'm afraid for you because I see a lot of fear and anxiety identifying with people with breast cancer. And I said, do you work with that? And she said, yes, actually I do. And I said, you may want to identify with someone with very healthy body, and focus on that as your identity. And I think that's true of anything. That's why they say, you want to hang out with the people who want to see you winning, right? Because they're the ones who identify with your winning thought, and they identify with their winning thought. And that's a much more healthy and happy place to be. So if you're hanging out with people that are scared all the time, always talking about the negative things that are happening in and around your lives, and focused on that, then part of your personality is going to identify with that. If you're seeking a friendship with that person, or if you are involved with that person in a way that gives you some sort of mental support. Does that make sense? So that being said, the third thing that I try to remind people who I work with about is perspective, right? That there are people in this country that never did get COVID, that won't get COVID, and they are going to live happy, healthy lives. And it's, it's getting perspective from those healthy people and how they stayed healthy, and then acting out on it. So you're getting perspective from other people, and then you're going to take action on it. So what did they do to stay happy and healthy and protect their bank accounts and still be prosperous in this really weird and difficult time? That's what you want to take a closer look at. You don't want to sit there and analyze all the things that are going wrong. You want to sit there and analyze all the things that can go right and then act on it. So for instance, if you are fearful of getting COVID, what are we doing? We're doing everything Fauci says. We're wearing masks, we're avoiding crowds, we're staying 6 feet apart when possible, limiting, family members from visiting, etc. We're doing all the right things. And, I'm wiping all handles of my household and my car down with Lysol wipes. We're all taking extra precautions, and that gives me a sense of security and good feelings about being safe. And so apply these rules to everything in your life. Like if you're afraid, that someone's going to, hack your ID, then sign up for the LifeLock. Let the credit agencies know that you're nervous. You think you may have been, take these precautionary steps. If you are nervous about anything in life, this is the flow. You experiment with your thoughts about this. How do I want to feel about this? If I want to feel more secure and happy and less fearful, then I think I'll feel that way, or just test it out. How will I feel if I do put this in place? When I do this, will I feel better? And then that usually is a pretty good indicator of how well you can fortify your own mind and body against things like fear and anxiety. Now, I am writing an article or a blog right now that's going to be on my website. And I'm also going to include a free, visualization and meditation to get control of fear. I've done it with several clients now. It's been very successful. So I think I'm going to record it and offer it for free on my website. And I will post the comments here when I do finally get it up. It's been a busy month already, and I am just getting to things like writing blogs this week. So I will post it again and probably make that announcement on Thursday at 1:00 and let you know that the fear visualization, or, kill fear and anxiety visualization, will be up on my website probably by Thursday. The last thing, obviously, I'm going to recommend that you do is you do that visualization, or, there's a lot on YouTube. God, I love YouTube. YouTube has been great for so many reasons, but you can also find meditations that alleviate fear on YouTube if you just want to search that on YouTube or Google it. But I would strongly suggest meditation or visualizations that see you winning, that see you fully protected. If any of you've ever been raised, with the thought of angels, use Archangel Michael. He's always there. Ask for protection in your health with Archangel Raphael. Ask for protection of all of your family, Saint Joseph. You use them. They want to be used. They want to be a part of your life and an active part of your thought process. So meditation and breath, breathing deeply. So when you meditate, you're going to drop your shoulders and relax. Inhaling and exhaling. And this is how I do just the introduction to a longer meditation. I imagine that God's light and love is flowing through the top of my head. Inhale. And as I exhale, that light expands throughout my mind, relaxing all the little tendons and muscles are over my ears and my jaw, down my throat, enlightening every cell, every muscle, every little bone and tissue. And that light expands down into my chest, etc. So you're going to move one section of your body down at a time. Now, that deep breathing and that focused attention is automatically going to drop your blood pressure, drop your heart rate, start easing the parasympathetic nervous system back into a normal state. And I will say that has been the most transformative. Just doing that, and I know I've been giving away the body scan for free on my website, but I'm probably going to do a bit of this just deep relaxation meditation so that you can experience what it's like to know what it is to be deeply relaxed. I'm back. At any rate, I will post all of those free visualizations and meditations. And it's funny that these information ideas that are coming from my clients that are like, oh man, I know about 18 people that could really use this relaxation meditation.